What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Third Take. This is going to be a weekly podcast that talks about NBA, college basketball, and a little bit of WWE. First off, I want to start by welcoming Matthew Cobbs, friend of the show. He's going to be a weekly guest here. Right now, he's a University of Memphis student aiming to get a degree in sports and leisure management and currently working in the financial industry as an insurance sales rep. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Hey, I just want to say, hey, everybody, me and Larry talk a lot about sports every day, so we kind of want to give our take on different things and, in the sports world, whether it be basketball, football, wrestling at times, It's been a crazy time, and we love our sports, and we just want to keep talking about it and giving our opinions.
That's right. So, Matthew, this week with the NBA Finals about to start, I figured it'd be a good time for us to start our first show by giving an NBA Finals preview.
All right, I just want to say I am a Lakers fan, but there'll be no bias. I love basketball in general, and I love, watching players progress and watching teams progress. So it'll be fun to talk about.
We always talk about it. I'll tell you guys that. So let's start off just looking at the Heat and the Lakers individually, playoff records and the path to get there. And we'll start with Miami. First round, played Indiana, and it was a 4-0 sweep.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
You saw TJ Warren in the bubble in general before the playoffs started. You kind of saw him going off, but they played before the playoffs actually started, I believe maybe one game before. Mm-hmm. And Jimmy kind of locked them up, even though, it wasn't really a thing, but it became a thing because you know how the internet is and social media is. And
right.
They got into it, I believe, in the regular season before the bubble. So it was kind of cool to see.
That's when Jimmy told him he got his ass or something like that.
Yeah. So I thought it'd be a good series. I had the Heat coming out of that one just because Oladipo was hurt, and he came back, but he was still kind of getting over it and working his way back into the system. And they have a good team. Miles Turner's always been good to me, but I didn't expect a sweep. I don't really know who did, but the Heat took care of them pretty well.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say about that series is you and I were having a conversation before the playoffs took place, and I think we both said that the Heat Pacers would be the best series of the first round, and we ended up being super wrong about that.
Yeah.
But I think, like you mentioned, Oladipo, man, going down with the quad injury and coming back, which is not the same. And first, he elected to not play in the bubble, and then he ended up playing. He never looked like himself once he came back. He probably should have just sat this season out.
I agree.
It's unfortunate for him, man. He went from being an all-star to that injury, and it's devastating. But taking a look at the Heat, Jimmy Butler took things personally. He came out to play against TJ Warren, in scoring in 2 of the 4 games with 28 and 27. But I think the biggest thing of that series was Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero catching fire.
Yeah, they're good. They're shooters. I think Duncan Robinson is one of the best shooters in the NBA. I think he might have the best percentage. His shot is pure. I don't want to get into his story, but I believe he played D3 and worked his way up and didn't at one point maybe thought of not even playing in the NBA, maybe taking a side job until he can work his way up. But he is one of the feel-good stories, and he can ball. He's not just a shooter. He moves. He can play some defense. And like you said, Tyler Hero, I am a Kentucky fan. I knew what he could do. I am a little surprised. I didn't expect him to be doing it so good so soon. But, hey, he looks good.
It's almost like Kendrick Nunn and him should have reversed places for the finalist for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. A lot of people said that if Hero didn't get hurt in the middle of the season, I do believe that would have happened.
It's very possible, too. I think he definitely should have been first team all-rookie over Kendrick Nunn, too. I'll debate anybody on that. But let's look at the second round of Miami's playoffs path. Milwaukee, the number 1 seed, league MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and, other all-star Chris Middleton. But, they had Brook Lopez, who's shooting the 3-ball well. Eric Bledsoe is a good defender. What happened to Miami series? Not Miami, Milwaukee.
I think what happened is exactly what happened last year. Not the same. I know the bubble probably affected them If they were in Milwaukee in front of fans, I think it would have been maybe a different series. But honestly, with the way they played and with the 5-out offense that the Bucks continued to play with Giannis before he went down, I don't think they were going to win. And I don't know if it's on Budenholzer or Giannis for not working on the shot, because I mean, it's easy for me and you to say, you know, just work on your three-pointer, but it is kind of becoming a thing. Like, his form just isn't, you know, there yet. I think he knows it. I think he'll work hard, but the Heat just outplayed them. The game plan against Giannis was perfect. There's been questions about Chris Middleton being a second star. I know he's been an all-star the past 2 years, but can he, you know, actually be that second guy? Can he take over? He showed up, but, I mean, the Heat won in 5. And I know Giannis went down, but I think the Heat would have won regardless.
Right. Two things came to my mind that you were talking about. The first one, you know, I saw something where Jason Kidd told Giannis Antetokounmpo he needed to change his shooting form after his rookie season. And going back and looking at the video, did you see that?
I think I saw a clip of it.
You know, his form his rookie year and sophomore season looked virtually perfect. Didn't even look flawed. And that's when he had the best shooting percentage of his career. So I thought it was kind of weird that his former coach suggested that he change his shooting form. Because, you know, now it looks really robotic. And then the second thing that came to mind was, you know, I think Chris Middleton might have gotten the nod as an all-star. Because, you know, when you finish in the top 2 of the conference, normally at the all-star break, you get 2 all-stars. You know, that's kind of just an unwritten rule of the NBA. It ends up working out that way. So I think he could have benefited from that just because of, you know, he's able to put up numbers, being able to shoot the 3 ball and score. Because if he's on, he's on. He ended up willing them to that one game that the Bucks ended up winning in overtime. But other than that, man, Miami handled Milwaukee. And like you said, they had a great game plan for Giannis. Here again, you know, Butler showed up to play. He was actually the leading scorer in 3 out of the 5 games. You know, I can't say enough good things about Jimmy Butler. Ultimate glue guy. If he's on that team, you know they got a chance to compete.
Yeah, he has a chip on the shoulder. He definitely does. Based off of, you know, what he's been through in his career, the 76ers, the Bulls, the Timberwolves, you know, he's a hard worker. And I think he came in and he locked in, and he knew they were the number 1 team. He knew Giannis was going to win MVP. He knew Giannis was going to win Defensive Player of the Year. And I think he knew he wanted to take them down just to show people, you know, accolades are cool, but when it's the playoffs, you know, all that goes out the window.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know, Milwaukee was a lot of people's favorite to be in the finals and even win the finals this year. So, you know, that screwed up a lot of brackets, or busted a lot of bubbles, if you will. So moving on to the conference finals, you got Miami versus Boston. Initially, I didn't know who to pick. Like me and you talked about it before the conference finals started. It was tricky because you got Miami, who's got an all-around good team, but when you look at Boston, they got 4 guys who could get you 20 or 30 on any given night. And several times in the series, those 4 guys did get you 20 or more. Those 4 being Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker, and Marcus Smart.
I'm gonna be honest. My pick to go to the finals from the East was the Celtics. I was dead wrong. I'm surprised. I'm kind of disappointed in Brad Stevens. You know, he's always a great coach. He's, you know, they've been there. They've been to the East Conference Finals, 4 or 5 times in the past couple of years. They've been doing good, but Tatum, what did he get? All second team or all third team? NBA?
I'd have to look. I'm not gonna guess.
I believe it was all third team. He's good. He's a star, but you know, in those first quarters with him, he was going 0 for 5 and 0 for 7. He would pick it up in the second half, but you know, sometimes you know, you gotta have it. You just gotta have it. And I don't think Gordon Hayward should have came back. He looked good. He hit a couple threes out there, but he just kind of looked slow on defense. He missed the layup in that last game that came back to hurt him. And I don't know. I think them not having a big Thias and Canner, they're good, but when you got Bam,
right?
Yeah, I mean, he's too quick. He's a point forward, like Calipari said. He's good. Like he's great. I just think they got outplayed. They settled for shots. Kemba Walker was kind of settling. So I don't know what happened there.
So a couple of things I want to get your opinion on, and the first one is, Goran Dragic finished with 29, 25, and 23, leading scorer in 3 out of the 6 games. What happened there is Kemba should hypothetically be able to hold Dragic.
To be honest, I didn't watch a lot of Celtics basketball, but Kemba Walker, his first year there, and I thought he could play defense. He's smaller, but I think that comes with the Heat's offense. They're always moving, they're always cutting. And Dragic, they're both small, but Dragic's kind of tricky. He's a lefty. He's got that feel to his game. He can do these up and under layups. Like he's got a jumper, he can shoot. I just think he outworked him, honestly. I just think the game plan was good, and Dragic benefited from it.
Well, I think one thing that definitely came out and stunned Miami not Miami, but Boston, was Miami's zone. When they put that when they put that zone on them, man, it was like stagnant. They didn't know what to do. They were turning the ball over, missing shots, taking ill-advised shots. And I think part of the reason that Gordon Hayward ended up coming back is because, Boston realized it's going to be a half-court battle. And with Gordon Hayward's basketball IQ, it did probably make it easier on them to slow things down. He was able to share the ball, distribute it a little bit more. What are your thoughts on that?
That zone, man, like watching that, and one game they finally figured out and could shoot with him, and but a lot of the times they move it around, but I don't know, the ball just kind of got stuck. Jaylen Brown was shooting pretty well, but it was just hard. They had that zone down to a science. Like Miami, I don't know what they're gonna do in the finals with it, but against the Celtics, it worked. It worked,
and it sure did. It also didn't help Boston that Adebayo found his role definitely during that series. He had been playing well all playoffs, but coming in with 27 and 16, 32 and 14, he took over.
Yeah, he wasn't scared. He was not scared of the moment. He was not scared at all.
Right. And then definitely Tyler Hero coming in, 37 off the bench one night, led Miami to that win, 112-109 in Game 4 to give them the 3-1 lead. Can't say enough things about Tyler Hero this playoffs. But, Miami ended up getting it done, moving on to the finals, and they will be playing the Los Angeles Lakers. I'll let you start off talking about this one. What did you think about their playoff path?
A lot of people will say, I'm not going to get into what the critics say about, Lakers or LeBron, but to be honest, as a fan, I wasn't expecting to play Portland that first round. And with the West is so tricky, it's such a close battle. I didn't think the Lakers would play the Rockets the second round. I thought they would play the Clippers. I thought they would go up. It's kind of hard. And then, you got the comeback kids in Denver. I mean, they did good all playoffs. I think they were just tired, towards in the conference finals. Vogel had a great defensive game plan against Jokic. I think Jamal Murray got hurt, or he hurt his ankle that last game. I mean, he wasn't hurt, but, he was just tired. I just think it kind of weighed down on him. I think their path in general, it was pretty tough, but they just kind of clicked at the right time. But, I'm kind of biased, but, I mean, both teams, you said the Heat 12-3 playoff records. I believe the same thing for the Lakers, 12-3. I mean, it's going to be a battle, but I want to hear what you have to say about the Lakers too.
That's one thing I wanted to note. Both teams only lost 3 times in the whole playoffs, so they're both hot. It's tough for me to call, but we'll get into that later. Let's start off with looking at the Portland series. They dropped the first game. Davis and LeBron, they showed to play every night, okay? We all understand Anthony Davis, LeBron James, you're getting at least a combined 50, if not more. it comes down to their role players being around them. Avery Bradley not coming to the bubble, we've talked about it, definitely hurts them defensively. But, they got Caruso, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Rondo running that guard unit. And then you also got, with big men, JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard, who sometimes in some series, specifically the Houston series, didn't see many minutes just because of small ball. But looking at Portland, Dame Lillard ended up getting injured. They didn't have Trevor Ariza there. CJ McCollum was playing with a fractured back. I don't really think the fractured back had much to do with Portland losing, nor do I think Damian Lillard's knee. But I think they could have taken a couple more games if everyone was fully healthy. But I don't think there's anything much other to say than the Lakers rolled through them after that first game.
Yeah. Before we move on, I will say, even as a Lakers fan, I do believe if they had Trevor Ariza, he's kind of known as one of those LeBron stopper guys, and there's one of those guys on the Heat. We'll get to that later, but I do believe if they had Ariza, I think it might have went 6. And Dame, I think, got hurt game 4 or 5, which it was pretty much over. I think it might have been game 4. So, I mean, they won, so we can move on.
Right. I think the closest game, other than the first one, was an 8-point Laker win. So, like you said, not much going on there. But looking at the conference semifinals, they were going to play the winner of the Game 7 between Houston and OKC. Houston ended up winning on the last possession of Game 7. I'll be honest with you. And, like I've mentioned many times on this podcast, you and I talk basketball every day, and we even talked before this series, and we both kind of had the same idea. Either Houston was going to sweep them or the Lakers were going to sweep them. It was going to be one or the other. Small ball was going to win or traditional ball was going to win. The Lakers coming out and matching small ball, I think, was huge. You cannot not play Anthony Davis. He's the best player on the court most of the time. So they were going to find a way for them to play him. And the Rockets came out in Game 1, and they held them to 25 and 14, which that's still a good game, but for him that's low.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Rockets still in that first game?
I think we came out, or Vogel came out. He didn't know how he wanted to do it. I think he wanted a feel-out game. I'm pretty sure JaVale still started, so we didn't match them yet. He moved on and matched them the next game. I think they came out. They just came off winning the Game 7 against the Thunder, like you said. I think they were still hot. They were pretty confident. I love Westbrook. He was talking and stuff, during that first win. And I just think they came out more ready than us, to be real. That's one of the only games in the playoffs I can say we just weren't ready. They outplayed us. But that next game, the next 4 games, but Vogel matched them. Like you said, AD can be the best player on the floor. He can be better than LeBron at times. And when he took JaVale out and Dwight out, they didn't play – I'm pretty sure they didn't play 3, 4, or 5. They might have played some in 2. But once he matched up with their small ball, it was over. It was over. Because you got – and I don't think Westbrook was – he was healthy, but, he was coming off injury. But he just wasn't himself. He's not a great shooter. But some of the stuff he was doing, he was turning the ball over. I'm a Lakers fan. I'm not trying to give them, excuses. I'm not trying to, do that. But he just didn't look like himself. And I think, they just got outplayed. D'Antoni's gone now. But that's my view on it.
See, I agree with you on that. I think Houston's team last year actually was better than this year's team. Yeah, they had James Harden and Russell Westbrook. But – as many people said before the season started, when they got Westbrook, you got 2 ball-heavy guards who always want to be holding the basketball. It ended up working out for the most part, but, is the 4th or 5th seed in the playoffs really what you want?
And that was my whole thing talking to, my other friends about it. When you look at Russ and you look at Harden, you see 2 superstars. You expect them. I expect them to at least be the 3 seed, to be honest. But like you said, last year with Chris Paul and they got rid of Capella. I mean, I'm kind of old school. I like traditional basketball, but I just think it was a big risk to do, small ball, especially the way they did it, to be honest.
And I think Houston should have kind of stick to their model, like you said earlier, more traditional. Because when you look at the Warriors, they got Steph and Clay, who are high-volume basketball players. Clay doesn't dribble much, but they still always tried to honor that traditional basketball in a sense of having a true center out there. And that even meant starting, Kevon Looney or Andrew Bogut or whatnot. Even JaVale McGee back when the Warriors had.
Yeah, at one point. Yeah, he has 2 rings with them, yeah.
Right. So I think Houston messed up going small ball, especially against the Lakers. Anthony Davis, he was destroying them on the glass, 14 rebounds one game, 15 the other. Even LeBron was getting double-digit rebounds in games. So there's not much you can really say for Houston. You can't make up excuses. They're just going to have to stop with the small ball. It might work during the regular season, but when it comes down to when play matters most, you got to be able to rebound the basketball and defend post players. So moving on to the conference finals, the Lakers went up against a team who overcame a 3-1 deficit not once but twice in the playoffs against Utah and the Clippers. And Clippers, like we said earlier, they're kind of like the Miami or Milwaukee situation. Many people thought they were going to the finals. They traded their whole future away basically for Paul George and being able to sign Kawhi Leonard, and it didn't work out for them. Doc Rivers is already out after 1 year with both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. We'll save that story for another podcast. But I actually thought Denver was going to win. I know you're going to laugh at that, but I honestly just felt like they had the momentum, and they came out and dropped game 1. But you can't deny they came ready to play in game 2. They were 1 possession away from winning it. They actually did win game 3, and then game 4 right until the very end. They lost by 6, but right up until the end, it was a 2-point ball game. Fouling at the end made it a bigger deficit. So, they could have hypothetically won 2 of those games, and if they do, we're looking at a different series. But got to give the Lakers credit when credit's due, and they pulled out.
This is where a little bias is going to come out. Rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. But that game that you said they lost by 2. Lakers won by 2. They were wearing the Black Mamba jerseys, and Anthony Davis, the guy we said who can be the best player at any given moment on that court as a Laker. He took that shot. He took that 3. He told everybody in the huddle he was taking that 3. He told LeBron he was taking that 3. He wanted that moment. He talked about it after the game. He wanted that big moment, and that right there is when I knew, the Lakers kind of won that series. I'll admit, watching their story, watching the Nuggets story, watching them beat, the Jazz, come back 3-1, watching them come back on the Clippers, the Lakers rival, as people say, I was pretty happy. And I wouldn't say I wasn't nervous, but I mean, I knew they could win. I knew they could beat us. But when AD took that shot, I knew, the series might be over. And I'm kind of disappointed in Jokic. Like, it might have been game 3 or 4 where he did score in the fourth quarter, and I give credit to Vogel. I give a lot of credit to Vogel on that.
I think it was game 4. It was game 4.
That game 4. It sounds crazy what he did. He put Markieff Morris on Jokic. And, you might say Morris is, smaller, but what Jokic has to do is work on the speed. And he lost his weight. He lost that weight, but he's just not as athletic as some big man. And Markieff was able to hold him to 0 points in the fourth. It didn't get talked about as much. I will say that not a lot of people talked about it, but I was kind of surprised. Murray, tried to do as much as he could, but the Nuggets fought hard. I just think the Lakers were honestly just a better team.
I agree with that. And here's the story of the Lakers playoffs. And, excluding Anthony Davis and LeBron James, here's what it boils down to. The role players showed up and did their jobs.
Yes.
You can't say it enough. Caruso, KCP, Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, Rondo, they all showed up. Markieff Morris, they played just basketball. They went out, played, fought, didn't give up. And that's why, they only had 3 losses in the playoffs. It came down to role players executing, and they've done that for the most part. So as we go into the finals, Heat versus Lakers, I kind of look at it as the underdogs versus the favorites. Miami's not supposed to be here, but, half the people expected the Clippers, half expected the Lakers. We knew it was going to be a battle of LA. We should know which LA team was going to come out. And the Lakers are here, and, they got LeBron James. If you got LeBron James, you're probably making it to the finals. But when you look at it, I kind of want to call the underdogs number in this. And I say that, and here's why. And we'll go into it. But the bench, man. When you look at the bench, the role players of the Heat can probably call the Lakers role players numbers. What do you think about that?
Now when you start a series off, you're gonna play, maybe not most of your role players, but mainly all of them. But that last game,
8-man rotation, right? 8, 9 man.
Yeah. But when I look at that last game where the Heat closed the Celtics out, 8 people played, and Solomon Hill only played 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So really, 7 people played. I guess it was Iggy and Hero off the bench. I guess those were the only people that actually played, and maybe somebody else, if I'm not mistaken. But that's fair. But some stats that I do know off the top of my head, the Lakers, and it's not all about points,
right?
But in the playoffs, the Lakers averaged the second most points off the bench behind, I believe, it might have been the Nuggets, behind the Nuggets, I believe. So, they kind of got them there. And I'll give it to you, those bench players of the Heat, they can come out and they get their points. They run their system. Iggy hit some big-time shots in that second game, or that Celtics last game. I think he was 5 for 5 from 3. And, they were kind of waiting for that. They were kind of waiting for that for him. Tyler Hero, obviously, he can go off for 25 at any given moment, 37, like you said. But the reason I really truly believe our role players will outplay the Heat is the defense. The Heat play defense, but when you look at Caruso, you look at KCP, Avery Bradley's not here. When you look at Danny Green's been kind of lackluster this playoffs, but he's still Danny Green. I still trust him. When you look at their defense and you look at the shots that KCP's been hitting all playoffs, all regular season, KCP might be the Lakers' third best player. Kuzma had an off series against the Nuggets, but other than that, the whole playoffs, he's been good. I think he's third in scoring in the playoffs behind LeBron and AD. I think the Lakers maybe outplay them. And you look at Markieff, he's been doing good. But, I'm not taking away from, the Heat. Do you consider Dragic what do you consider him? Is he a role player to you?
I would just consider Bam and Jimmy stars, everybody else role players, if we're making it simple.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, that's fair. Then, yeah, they got Dragic. That's cool. It's going to be a tight matchup. Do you believe that that's what it's going to come to? You believe that the finals is going to come down to the role players, though, like completely?
Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. And I think if I'm Miami, I'm saying, hey, like we said earlier, LeBron, AD are going to, at a minimum, get a combined 50 to 60. That's at a minimum. We're expecting them to probably end up getting 30 apiece, okay? Your job, it depends. Your job is going to be preventing Kuzma from going off, Danny Green from getting hot, Rondo from dishing out plays, keeping Dwight Howard off the boards. It's going to come down to the little things like that. That's what I really do. I think that's what it's going to come down to.
Earlier, I said it earlier, I'm coming back to it when I said LeBron stopper. It's funny. I don't know how many people consider these two LeBron stoppers, but I, as a Lakers fan, kind of do. Jimmy Butler and Jay Crowder. Mm-hmm. Those are two guys that, they've locked up LeBron before, locked up. Yeah, so it's like, I don't believe they're going to lock him up, but they're going to make him pass. But, he led the league in assists. But, I believe LeBron's going to do what he does. And It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough because you saw what they did to Giannis.
Right.
You saw everybody saw what they did to Giannis. And Bam, you saw what Bam did to Giannis. I think Bam might have been like one of the best defenders on Giannis this season. And it's kind of funny because you got old school Kentucky and Anthony Davis, new school Kentucky and Bam. So they're gonna go up against each other. But another thing that might hurt the Heat is and you might laugh at this, but I believe Dwight might still keep starting. I love JaVale McGee, but Dwight's been better in this playoffs. And JaVale will come in, and they beat the Celtics, I think, because of big man, Cantor and Theis were kind of too slow. But I don't know if Bam's going to be able to do what he does against – I don't think he's going to be able to do what he does against AD and Dwight and JaVale, to be honest. You got 3 7-footers, and you got Keith, who's not scared of anybody. So I think there's a lot of factors I think there's more factors that work against the Heat than for the Heat.
Yeah, I get that. 3 big bodies is always hard for one guy to put up with. One thing that comes to mind right off the bat is, I think Dwight Howard should have been starting over JaVale the whole time. I personally don't look at JaVale as a starter caliber player. I never have. I can't take him serious throughout his whole career. I don't mean that in a bad way. I think it's the way that the media has kind of portrayed him, and that's not his fault. But I would think, Dwight's a future Hall of Famer. I think he should probably have gotten the nod. But, I understand this was kind of a prove-it year for Dwight.
Yeah, there's a lot. I don't mean to interrupt you, but there's a lot that went into that. Like Dwight, I'm pretty sure he was on a 10-day contract at first. And then I'm not going to lie, about that 3rd or 4th game, he, got a for-sure contract and was playing good. And I want to sign him back next year. I get what you're saying with JaVale. I think JaVale starting is more of a for LeBron and AD because if you watch, they just throw lobs to him all the time. And now that's changed in the playoffs. It's not as easy, but I get what you're saying. I don't mean to get off track.
No, yeah. And one thing that comes to mind for me specifically after you said that was with Dwight, is he going to be able to prove that he belongs on a team? Because Memphis, you and I are a hometown team, and I know you're a Lakers fan, but you're also a Grizzlies fan. They just said, hey, here's Dwight. Basically just cut him, let him go, which, they gave you both the Lakers, Avery Bradley and Dwight, which would have helped the Grizzlies tremendously this year.
That's I mean, I'm gonna go into it, but that's something for another day. That whole thing.
Right. But I mean, Dwight's been good this season, so I think he's definitely proven it. But before we get sidetracked, let's kind of look at the starters for both teams. So starting right now for the Heat, Goran Dragic, Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Butler, Jay Crowder, Bam Adebayo, and then for the Lakers right now, point guard LeBron James, KCP at shooting guard, Danny Green, Markieff Morris, and Anthony Davis. Who do you think has the edge when it comes to starters?
Obviously I'm Lakers. I got to give it to the Lakers. When you got LeBron and AD on the same team, but honestly, when you say their starting lineup, if those are they've been changed. The Lakers have been changing. But if those are starting lineups, I mean, they match up pretty well because you got Keith and Jay, LeBron and Jimmy, and KCP will probably be on Dragic, and I guess Danny will be on Duncan. Mm-hmm. They match up, but if that is truly their starting lineup, Bogle might go big. He might bring Keith in off the bench, and he might put Dwight back in the starting lineup, and they will have an advantage just off being big. So he might have to adjust early. Jay Crowder, used to play for Memphis. And we loved him when he was here. Grit and grind. He hustled. He was a shooter. He hit that famous game winner off the Ja assist. But it's gonna be tough for him if that's their strong lineup.
He's over there small. I don't think Jay, as much as I love Jay, I don't think he's going to be able to hold Dwight or Anthony Davis in the posts.
Yeah.
But, you never know. Sometimes when you trade offense for defense, it ends up hurting you on the defensive end because a big guy is not going to be able to cover him on the perimeter. So
No, that's true too.
tricky. And also, here's another thing we hadn't even talked about. What if Miami comes out in that zone or box and one?
I was hoping you asked that. I believe it was Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they tried to zone us, and there have been times where that game we lost Houston. We couldn't shoot, and we kind of started settling because they got a big lead early, and got a big lead late after we came back. So I'll give it to you. That's one thing I've been kind of worried about, but when you got AD who loves those mid-range jumpers, if he can sit and sink and hide in the middle of that zone and you hit him, I believe they'll have to get out of it early because he's either gonna hit a layup or take a jumper or people will cut to the hole. I believe they'll stick to it, but I believe we'll shoot them out of it kind of early. They might have to do something different against the Lakers.
So one thing that I just want to make a side note on, you said Houston put you in a zone. Well, here's what I'm going to say. Miami's got a lot better defensive players than Houston does.
No, that's true. That's true.
So I think it'll be interesting. But, the Lakers, if they're hot, they're hot. You can shoot your way out of a zone. So that's something to look at. But also, let's talk about the benches real quick. I'm just going to list who they got listed on each team's bench, and, we'll talk about who we like more. Miami, you got Hero, Iguodala, Derrick Jones Jr., Kelly Olynyk, Myers Leonard, Solomon Hill. I will say Kendrick Nunn's out, so don't expect him.
Oh, he's out.
That's why
Kendrick Nunn is out.
Yeah.
Really? I did not know that. I'll be honest. I did not know. I thought he just. It seemed like I don't know. Okay.
He's one guy that doesn't get much coverage. So it probably kind of just fell out of the news. But
he averaged 15 this season. It's crazy. I did not know that.
But I will say, he did have a good rookie campaign. I wouldn't classify him as a rookie because he'd be in the G League and whatnot. But the way Dragic has played in the playoffs, there is no reason, absolutely none, that Kendrick Nunn should have been playing above him during the season. But anyway, let's talk about the Lakers bench. Rondo, Caruso, Kyle Kuzma, Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, Deion Waiters, J.R. Smith, Quinn Cook, Jared Dudley. I don't know. The bench units to me feel about equal because not all those guys are going to play. I think the Lakers have more big names you would recognize. The casual basketball fan wouldn't really recognize many of the Heats. I don't know. I would say they're about equal.
I just don't know. It's not at this point. I know it seems like buys, but
I understand.
But when you got Rondo, who when me and you were growing up, he was known as not being a 3-point shooter. Like you said, a casual basketball fan probably wouldn't know he's averaging 47% shooting from three in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So when he doesn't take as many as Danny Green or KCP, but he's proved time and time again in this playoffs he can take the big shot. He can take it from deep. He's been hitting big threes. You got Caruso who cuts to the basket, who's high IQ player. Maybe Dragic, or not Dragic, but Hero. He's kind of high IQ. He can get those sneaky layups and go to the hole and get a fast break steal or something like that. You got Markieff, who he may or may not come off the bench. He'll come in and knock down a few threes. I just think there's more. I think there's more depth. I think there's more depth for the Lakers, and they have more options. Because if you don't play JaVale at the 5, you put AD at the 5, bring Markieff in at the 4. I don't think the Heat have that. I'm be honest. I know I've seen Kelly Olynyk play this series, but not this series, but this playoffs. I don't know if I saw him in that Celtics series a lot. And I don't think I saw Myers Leonard. I thought these are players that I thought were good for the Heat, but they aren't getting much time. And I think the two people I just named, two of their big men, like I said, I think that's going to come back and hurt them against Anthony Davis and Dwight. Dwight's not going to get you 30 points, but if you watch him against Jokic, he's going to come in and he's going to play his butt off, and he's going to do what he does.
Right. And then quickly, let's look at coaching, Spoelstra, Vogel, who you taking?
Who do I think's the better coach, or who am I like?
Just straight up, who you taking?
I think Spoelstra's better coach. I'll admit that. But
I would take Spoelstra as well.
In this, I think Vogel's done a great job.
No, yeah. I mean, he got the number 1 seed in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's had a good year. He's got a good coaching staff with him as well.
That's true.
Now, question I want to ask you, going along with our finals preview, did the bubble give one team, the Heat or Lakers, a better chance?
Man.
See, I would say, my personal opinion, I think that the Lakers always had a chance to get to the finals. Miami, here's what you got to think about. You're playing in Bankers Life Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. You don't think that Indiana's going to win a couple games? You're playing
exactly, yeah.
Pfizer Forum of Milwaukee. You don't think Bucks are going to win on their home court?
Yeah, I give you.
And the Celtics in the Garden, come on now. I think that the Heat definitely benefited from the bubble. Like we said earlier, shooters in the same gym constantly, the same repetition, same depth perception, it gets easier and easier. That's why most role players play better at home than they do on the road because they play more games at home.
Yeah.
So I think the Heat are the Cinderella team that benefited from the bubble.
I agree. At first, I had to think about it, but now that you got your points, I agree. Because when I look at somebody, the joke with Tyler Hero is he's a bucket. That's what he said at Kentucky. I was watching the game live. He was going off against somebody. It might have been South Carolina or somebody. They started talking, and he was going off. He said he's a bucket. And what that means, to the casual fans that are watching this, he's a basketball player. He's a scorer. He can shoot. Like, he's one of those guys where if you put him in the same gym, it's going to help him. If there's no fans, it's going to help. If there's no distractions. He's just playing basketball. And I'm not, using it as an excuse, but I do think they benefited. Somebody like Duncan Robinson, somebody like Jimmy, who's just, he just wants to play basketball and compete. And I do think the bubble will help him also.
Yep, I'm glad that we both agree on that. Moving forward, let's give our predictions. So, Finals MVP, who do you got?
I got LeBron James. I know, I don't know if we're going to get into that later. He knows he has to get it. And I think that – I don't know if you watched that last game against the Nuggets, but we got glimpses. We got glimpses of that 2012 Heat, LeBron James, him taking – he scored 7 unanswered. 1 was a deep 3. They kept fouling him. I think he knows that. He needs to win this for his legacy. And he knows, him being the guy.
Let's save that because that's our other segment we'll get into that we're introducing everybody. So you got Finals MVP LeBron James?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go with who do you got for the Heat if they win?
I mean, the easiest choice would be Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
When you got something like that, it's got to be either Jimmy or Bam.
Yep.
I'm giving it to Jimmy. I'll say Jimmy.
I'm going to say my prediction, I think, is going to come down for the Finals MVP to either the big men. I'm going to go with Anthony Davis or Bam Adebayo. And then now predictions, X Factor. Who's got to be the X Factor of this series, both teams?
I think for the Heat, it's got to be Dragic. It's easy to say, maybe Hero, but I say Dragic. And for the Lakers, I would probably say Kuzma just did okay against the Nuggets. I would say, it's going to sound funny, I would say KCP.
Okay.
I would say KCP.
No, I like both those answers. Those guys didn't even come to mind, truthfully, for me. My X Factors, I'm going with Tyler Hero. If he's on, that's definitely going to give them a boost, especially off the bench when they're playing a short 7 or 8 man rotation. So I think he's super important being consistent. And then my other X Factor has got to be Kyle Kuzma. I know you just said it. You mentioned that he was off against the Nuggets, But if the Lakers are going to come out strong, they need Kuzma hitting shots. All right, so with our finals preview wrapping up, who are you taking, Heat or Lakers, and then how many games? I know the answer. I just want to see. I want to see.
No, if I had to pick an actual, I want to say 5, but I'm gonna say 6. The Heat are gonna lay down. I say Lakers in 6. They're not gonna.
Oh, it's tough for me. I don't want to say it. I got to go with Lakers in 6 too. Being realistic.
I mean, if that's what you feel.
Well, I mean, yeah, being realistic. As bad as I would want the Heat to be able to win, I'm gonna have to go against the underdogs like everybody else. It's hard to bet against Anthony Davis and LeBron James. It's hard.
Man, a lot of people are doing it.
I got Lakers.
A lot of people are betting.
But I will say I'm expecting a good matchup. I am. I wouldn't be surprised if it went 7, and if it does go 7, Game 7, anything can happen. So I'll just throw this out there. I'm not going to be shocked if the Heat win.
I mean, that's fair to say. I mean, out of all teams, I do think they're the toughest because they match up with us. They play as much defense as we do. Nobody else has played defense, in my opinion, against us.
Right. So one thing that Matthew and I have kind of talked about is he's going to be a regular on this show is segments that we want to introduce. And this week we're going to introduce a regular segment that we're going to have, which is called Let's Talk. And it's going to be a segment that can only last 2 minutes. And our first Let's Talk segment is going to be on LeBron James. So I'm about to start the clock, and then we'll get to talking. So I just started it. So where does his legacy rank?
I think he's easily top 3. And I think if you're a real basketball fan, man, you have to put him in your top 3.
Top
you don't 9 straight finals or 8 straight finals plus one when he's younger plus another one now. 10 finals total in 17 years.
Well, that's another point we're going to get to. Real quickly, I'm going to answer. I think his legacy is top 10. I think it depends on the categories and how you look at it. If you wanted to say rings, overall, points, offense, defense, I think he's in the top 10 of all of them, truthfully. But I think there's so many players that I'd have to give my exact opinion when he retires. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that's fair to say. I mean, he's not.
I know we joke around, and I tell you, no, he's not top. He's definitely top 10. I just don't know where in the top 10 for me. Moving on, is there a sense of urgency for LeBron? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. I believe. Yes.
I say yes as well. And then lastly, 10 finals appearances. This upcoming one is his 10th. He's 3-6 in those finals appearances. How important is winning the finals for LeBron? We got 30 seconds.
This year is so you can tell it's very important. He has for his legacy. He has to do it. He has to win.
I think it's make or break. If he loses this NBA Finals, he goes to 3-7. That's not a good record in the finals. People are definitely going to be saying he can't be in the GOAT talk. Last 15 seconds, Matthew finishes up on that.
With that, he knows, and you saw glimpses of it. And yeah, he's too passive at times, but he knows. I don't even have to explain anything. He knows he has to get Finals MVP too. So don't be surprised when he goes off for 50.
And that's time. So that's just something Matthew and I wanted to bring in. Let's talk. That way we can get some big thoughts out in a short period of time, kind of spice up the conversation and get it flowing a little bit faster. But as we close out our NBA Finals previews, both of us have chosen the Lakers in 6. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
It will. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it went 5, to be wrong. I got to get that out there because I just got to get that out there.
I understand it. I think Lakers in 6 is, the safe bet. And I think both of us, with our, our professional opinions on the line, we're kind of just playing it safe. I think it's the right call, especially in a series. Dude, anything can happen. It's in the bubble. We've seen crazy things already. Anything's on the table.
I think it's fair to say.
So moving on, another thing that this podcast is going to cover weekly is college basketball. And just real quick, Matthew and I are going to go through the early top 25 for the 2020-2021 NCAA basketball season. Number 1, Baylor Bears. Not a team I watched, but it looks like they're returning a couple double-digit starters. Looks like a couple bench players are getting promoted.
Jared Butler's good.
What'd you say?
Jared Butler's good.
Okay. They got him as a leading scorer. Let's see. We'll go to number 2. I'm just going to run through the top 25. Villanova Wildcats. Number 3, Gonzaga. 4, Virginia Cavaliers. 5, Iowa Hawkeyes. I will note that does shock me. 6, Wisconsin Badgers. 7, Illinois Fighting Illini.
That's surprising.
Duke Blue Devils. 10, Tennessee Volunteers. 11, Creighton Blue Jays. 12, Kentucky Wildcats. 13, Michigan State Spartans. 14, Texas Tech Raiders. 15, North Carolina Tar Heels. 16, Oregon Ducks. 17, West Virginia Mountaineers. 18, Arizona State Sun Devils. 19, UCLA Bruins. 20, Texas Longhorns. 21, LSU Tigers. 22, Houston Cougars. 23, Ohio State Buckeyes. 24, Florida State Seminoles. 25, Florida Gators. It says the next in line were the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, Arkansas Razorbacks, Indiana Hoosiers, Richmond Spiders, and Louisville Cardinals. What do you think?
First thing off the bat, they're showing no love to our hometown Memphis Tigers.
Man, I thought the same thing.
That is, yeah, we might have underperformed last year, but to not have them in the top 25 with the team they have and the eligibility they have, I think that's just bogus. Now, this is way too early, but still, that is still surprising. And I am a fan of Kentucky Wildcats. I know them from Memphis. Having it at 12 is kind of laughable to me, but everybody else, I'm not surprised. I watch a lot of college basketball. I'm not surprised at the list. It's early. Virginia's always good there at 4. Gonzaga's always good. It's okay, but a few tweaks I think should be made.
Here's what I'll say. I'm not high on Baylor at 1. They're a team. They'll play fine in the regular season, but conference tournament, NCAA time, I feel like they disappear. Villanova's not as strong as their 2 championship teams, so I'm shocked they're at 2. Gonzaga's fine. They're bringing in a top 5 player to go with their already good starting 5. So I'm cool with them at 3. Virginia is a solid defensive team. I understand that, but I'm not high on them either. I think they'll be a top 5 team at the end of the year, but I don't think they'll stay in the top 10. Iowa's a surprise to me. I feel like that comes out at left field. What do you think about that one?
I'm going to be honest. I watched them a little bit last year. I didn't think they would be this,
Well, they're bringing Luka Garza back. He averaged 24 and 10, basically.
But who else? I mean –
well, it gets – they got 2 other double-digit scorers in Joe Wiskamp and C.J. Frederick. Other than that, it looks like they got 3 players.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising.
Wisconsin, that's a team that shot up who really wasn't even in the mix last year. Same with Illinois. Kansas and Duke are 2 blue bloods. Tennessee, they'll probably fall out of the top 25. But it's always good when Memphis and Tennessee are both in the mix for top 25 teams. Creighton, they always get love, but I'm not real excited.
They were pretty good last year. I don't know who left or who stayed, but I know they're a good team. I'm not surprised to see them here.
Kentucky, Michigan State, 2 blue bloods. And, I'll have to say, Kansas, Duke, Kentucky, Michigan State, North Carolina, they'll probably all find their way in the top 10 at some point. Basketball is always fluctuating.
Yeah.
But overall, man, looking at this list, I'm not sure I like the way too early top 25. We might have to come together and do our own.
No, that's definitely something I can see happening. But I don't know. Memphis would definitely be in mine.
I think so too. Add in the additions they did this year, along with everyone who came back. I'm a little disappointed to not see Memphis in it, as well as Louisville. Louisville has a good team returning, and they're bringing in a couple guys. I'm shocked to see Louisville not on here, definitely. One thing I am happy to see, though, is that Houston is getting some love. Another American team is finally ranked in the early top season poll, so I'm happy to see that.
Just a side note, that Kentucky-Louisville rivalry is kind of spicing up. Calipari and Louisville's coach, can't remember his name. They've kind of had some words on Twitter and videos going out, and they actually scheduled the speculation was there wasn't going to be a game this season, but there actually will be one December 26th. So if you're a basketball fan, that's one you should definitely watch.
Definitely. But we'll have more as college basketball season gets closer. We just wanted to give you guys a look at what was going on with college basketball. And I think Matthew and I actually, since we kind of weren't too heavy with this top 25, we might sit down and make our own top 25.
I think that's something we should do.
Definitely. And then, I mentioned this earlier. We cover a little bit of WWE. One thing I want to talk about, just give the results of Clash of Champions that happened this past weekend on Sunday night. So we'll go through that. Right now, the WWE champion is Drew McIntyre, and he faced Randy Orton in an ambulance match. McIntyre ended up winning the match. I wasn't too high on the ambulance match. It's hard to watch wrestling without live fans, so I understand how everybody watches it. But overall, pay-per-view went well. The Universal Championship, the title is held by Roman Reigns. He faced his cousin Jey Uso. He ended up getting Jey, and he retained the title. That was probably the best match of the night. For the SmackDown Women's Championship, Bayley faced Asuka, and Asuka ended up beating Bayley by disqualification. For the Raw Tag Team Championships, the Street Profits defeated Andre and Garza by pinfall to retain the titles. And then the United States Championship, Bobby Lashley versus Apollo Crews. Lashley's a part of the Hurt Business. They won. Lashley took home the title by submission. And then Raw Women's Championship, Asuka faced Zelina Vega, and Asuka ended up getting that title, but she lost the SmackDown title. She didn't lose it, but she lost the match because of disqualification, so Bayley kept it. Sami Zayn faced AJ Styles and the champion Jeff Hardy in the Intercontinental Championship ladder match. Zayn ended up defeating both Hardy and Styles to win the title. And then for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship, Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro faced the Lucha House Party and retained the titles. I know we didn't get to watch this pay-per-view live together. It's something we had discussed. But just want to give a quick recap, and hopefully Matthew and I can end up watching WWE sometime this week and give a quick rundown of the storyline and what's going on.
That's definitely something that we should do.
Yes, sir. Well, Matthew, I appreciate you coming on for the first episode of the Third Take. I enjoyed having you on and looking forward to having you as a regular on the show. Anything you want to say before we head out?
I just want to say I appreciate you having me. I think we had a good discussion. I'm really excited to see what our predictions, hold, if they come true, or if, you never know. It's the finals, it's the bubble. There's no telling what could happen. I am excited to do that college top 25 and see what our teams can do.
Right. And, as the Third Take gets up and rolling, it's something that Matthew and I, as he's going to be helping me get this podcast going, we're going to talk about, do we want to do it just once a week, maybe more than once a week. So we'll just see how the sports world is going at the time, how we feel like we can discuss things. So, it's an exciting time over at Guys Being Dudes, and we're just happy to be able to bring you the Third Take.
Good.
Well, all right, my guy. I appreciate you coming on.
All right, no problem, bro. I'm excited for next time.
Yep.